Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I am your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing tonight, fellas?
Good.
All right. So first off, I wish all you guys, hope you guys had a great Christmas. We kind of caught some backlash here because we did not do a show last week. I guess in a funny kind of way, I think it makes us feel pretty good to know that you guys are tuning in, and you guys, when you don't get your This Week in the PNFL fix, you guys get a little rabid. So, I think all three of us kind of caught the backlash on that, either text, email, or Discord chat. So,
No, it was just you, Mark.
It was just me? Okay, it was just me. Okay.
It could have been worse. Could have been worse if we heard nothing. Then we think, wow, we didn't do a show last week and no one noticed the difference. So.
Exactly. That's why I said I like that, because shows that you guys are definitely interested in the show and vested in it every week. So if I may speak for the whole crew, I'd like to say thank you very much. So again, hope you guys had a great Christmas, and wish all the best for you guys for this upcoming new year. So we are going to go into our wild card games. We had them last week. We had 4 games, pretty good games. I think I came in on the last 2 games, but we're going to run through all 4 of them, and then we're going to go into our championship game. So if you guys are all set, we are going to jump right into it. The first game, and I know that I talked to the guys about it before we got started, so we know exactly what we are going to be doing as far as the ones that we're going to be talking about and discussing. So the first game that we have up on our list, I don't know if he's going to have his music going or not, but we have the Houston Oilers taking on the Denver Broncos. And I think you can say this pretty much was all Houston, as Mitch made a statement by taking this game 30-7. We are going to start this off with Dean.
Yeah, this game wasn't any close. I mean, I believe, if I remember right, Houston scored first and stayed ahead in the score and didn't look back. And Baker Mayfield was 21 for 28 for 254 yards, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. And the running game was pretty good. There was, somewhere around 150 something or about that rushing yardage, which was pretty effective. So pretty balanced offense, pretty effective, and played good defense. And Denver didn't even seem to show up. You have to wonder whether the Broncos even got off the team bus and came into the stadium, because they were almost non-existent. I believe they scored like once.
Mm-hmm. All right. Coach, what'd your boys do this week?
It was a wonderful game. Baker Mayfield showed why he is the best quarterback in the league. Throwing for the 254, running for another 46, 4 touchdowns. Just absolutely woke up and pissed excellence yesterday morning before the game. The defense just kept Bryce Young in an absolute vice grip. He could do nothing. Passing, running, nothing until like the last drive against the prevent defenses when it was 30-0 and nobody cared. So felt good. Continuing the roll. That's 10 in a row for the Oilers, and now we go to New York to see who can represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
The best quarterback in the league. How do you explain all of the speculation about the alleged trade negotiations with the 49ers?
Well, hey, you always have to be looking towards the future. You can't always just be settled in the present.
Okay. Well, he kind of tipped his hand a little bit earlier, but than we had planned. But, hell, since he's already mentioned it, let me go ahead and flip this around a little bit. So for the other AFC game that we had for this week, we had the New York Jets taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, for most of the season, I think, or pretty much all the season, we kept talking about, well, where's the Jets at? Where's the Jets at? Those rumors that he had pretty much prepackaged his PPPs and says, here, run it for the week. And we thought that it was just going to be an easy take for Pittsburgh, but that was not the case, as the New York Jets took out Pittsburgh 35. Oh, is that what? 35-10. Ooh, Mitch, talk to me.
Well, all the crap all year long for Houston and the Jets, all the garbage talk, all the people who are wishing we were all dead. Well, guess what? We're the last two kicking in the AFC once again. So, again, Mac Jones woke up. He pissed excellence just like Baker Mayfield, throwing for those 3 touchdowns, running for 20 yards, throwing for 274. His only thing was he had a couple of fumbles, but it didn't matter. Jets defense showed up and played like they normally do. Forget the 400 yards they gave up during the season. We all know the Jets are a 250 or below type defense when they're actually playing. So good season for Pittsburgh, but the Jets show, the cream rises to the top of the playoffs.
All right, Dean.
Yeah, I don't think this was prepackaged PPPs that the Jets sent in. I think they scouted Pittsburgh and sent in the real stuff because it really showed. 35-10 score is not the result of mailing it in for anyone. So I think the Jets, without saying it, were who they are. And they played like it, and they showed it. And they were for real in this game. Because Pittsburgh's a pretty good team. You don't beat them 35-10 by mailing it in. So, that might say something about this coming weekend's game, this weekend's coming game involving the Jets. So we'll talk about that later.
All right. Over on the NFC side, we have our first game that we're going to go through is San Francisco taking on Washington. And I know that I think most people were projecting that Washington was going to take this game over San Francisco, but definitely I think I don't know if you call this an upset. I think in my perspective I would have, because I thought Washington was going to win this, but Charlie said no. As San Francisco took this one 21-20. Dean.
Yeah, what do we always say when the Redskins are playing at home? We say, check the weather forecast. This was a rain game, and the home team doesn't play very well in the rain in Washington. Now, this was another one of those games. I've seen this. My team played a game against 49ers this way, where one team wins statistically, and the 49ers, the other team, win the game on the scoreboard. I mean, in this game, Washington had close to 500 yards. I think it was like 470-something of total offense, while the 49ers were under 300. But the 49ers came out ahead on the scoreboard by 1 point, although it was a pretty dramatic finish where the Redskins tried to move downfield and score at literally the last second of the game and fell just short. So, yeah, I guess you consider an upspread if you go by the spread put up by Rich's Sportsbook. So, but, I think other than maybe one time by the Redskins, I think since Atlanta lost the Super Bowl to the Chargers, I don't think we've had very many times in which the NFC East team goes to the Super Bowl, including this year as well. Anyway, the 49ers did pull off the win here.
All right. Mitch.
49ers definitely are ones that we were thinking was not going to pull this thing out, and quite honestly, it looked horrible. I think in the middle of the game, there was a questioning why, Joe Burrow was not the starting quarterback in the playoff game because Brock Purdy looked like the 61st ranked quarterback in the league. But the final drive of the game, Brock Purdy brought him down, got the game-winning touchdown, and even though his stat line looked terrible, 47% completion percentage, 225 passing, only 3 yards rushing, had a fumble. The 49ers were able to capitalize on those turnovers and fumbles by Washington and really outlast them. Murray threw for 400 yards in this game, but like you said, turnovers were the killer for Washington, and the 49ers back in the NFC Championship game for the first time in a little while, I believe. So maybe this is the year for Charlie. Maybe this is the year.
Okay. Now, as we go into our very last game, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams are good teams within the NFC West. Oh no, in the NFC side. And I've been giving Philly a bunch of crap throughout the season. I mean, it's just a nice little ribbon going back and forth. On the same note, Mitch has been, when he's not talking about his team, he's wearing Minnesota Vikings cheerleading outfit. So it's going to be interesting to see how this turned out. But at the end of the day, very close game, very tight game. I guess you could say it was a defensive game, but in the end, Minnesota took this 17-14. Mitch.
Well, the Vikings do what the Vikings do, and that's beat up on the NFC. It is the NFC for crying out loud. But the Vikings were able to pull it out. It did look like, the Eagles were going to give them a fight there early on, but, the home crowd, the elements inside the Metrodome just was too much for Josh Rosen, and he became frozen in the tundra that is Minnesota. So congratulations to the Vikings for another trip to the championship game.
All right.
And then 70 degrees and 20% humidity under the roof of the dome.
Yes.
But, Drew Lock did pretty well, 71%, but he didn't throw a touchdown pass, and he had one interception, one fumble. But it got the job done, and in the second half, the Vikings ran the ball well and dominated the second half and came back to win the game. Very close, low-scoring game, but it got the job done, and in doing so, ensured that the NFC East would be shut out of the NFC Championship game yet again. So we're going to have a battle between the two NFC West teams, the Vikings and the 49ers, in the NFC Championship game.
All right. So went through our quick run through of that. So as you guys know, the wild cards are done, and now we know who is going to be representing, going down to who's going to coming to represent the actual championship game. Right now, we're looking at Houston and the Jets, which I think is definitely going to be an interesting game. And then you have Minnesota and San Francisco. So I think it sets a pretty good matchup. I mean, I think both teams are pretty evenly matched. I would give in the third segment, I'll give my opinion on this one. I don't want to say anything yet. So. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our middle segment. I guess right now the big thing is the, championship game. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Dean. If Dean can go ahead and talk about the NFC side and the AFC side, and then we'll get Mitch to talk about the same. I already know he's going to show his preference towards Houston, but we're going to start this one off with Dean.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a battle between, you wanted me to talk about the NFC or the AFC?
Let's start with the NFC.
Yeah, we're going to have a battle between the 49ers and the Vikings, and I think the 49ers are going to be pretty solid. They're going to put in a full effort, but I think they're going to be a bit outmatched by the Vikings, and I think Minnesota will win this one.
All right. Mitch, what's your take on this?
On the NFC or just the playoffs in general?
Well, we're going to start with the NFC just right now.
Okay. Well, I don't really care about the NFC. I mean,
Yeah, I know, but you got to take the Houston hat off for a minute. Oh, my goodness.
Fine. I mean, the Vikings are going to win this game. It's in Minnesota. Charlie will find a way to, fumble the ball or something in the Metrodome. I don't know, but we know that it's going to be the Vikings all day in this game. So that's what I'm thinking.
All right. Well, I will put my little commentary on this one, too, which I try not to do, except if I'm forced to. But I think that what surprised me with Charlie was that I did not think Charlie was going to win last week. I didn't. Sorry, Charlie. I didn't think so. But he definitely impressed me. I think I thought Washington was going to take it, but I would not. I mean, you're talking about, Minnesota's going to take it. Don't count him out because we counted him out last week. So I think Minnesota and Washington are pretty much on the same level a lot of times, but I actually thought that Washington was going to blow out San Francisco. That didn't happen. So, as Dean would say, not so fast. Just don't chalk this up to Minnesota walking the dog on San Francisco because, Charlie.
I will say that if Charlie wins this weekend, he will win the Super Bowl.
Oh, especially if he plays Houston. All right, we're gonna go ahead and talk. We're gonna talk about the AFC side. Dean, you got Houston and the Jets. What do you see on this one?
Well, in the infamous words of our host, it's real simple. The Jets are going to do what the Jets are going to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mitch.
Well, the Jets are going to do what the Jets do against Houston in the playoffs, and that's lose by double digits.
Okay, I'm not going to call it a double-digit loss. The wild card in this, and if everything is holding true that pretty much throughout the season, the Jets just sent in different PPPs for like week 1, do this, week 2, and he did it from the beginning of the season and said, every single week, this is what I'm going to run. So to me, if they take this victory, if they happen to beat Houston in the championship, definitely, and he's on quote unquote autopilot, you definitely have to plug him in to take the whole thing. I do know that Mitch is going to go ahead and he's going to plan and prep like he always does. I mean, it's that last week's game, I'll admit, was definitely impressive. I ended up watching it offline. So he'll do the same thing here. I know Mitch has lost some games, some heartbreakers against the Jets. It's going to be curious to see, one person that's really prepping and maybe someone they just had something prepackaged and tossed in there. So,
yeah, I don't think the Jets are on autopilot. I think they're at full strength.
You're at full strength now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if Houston wins, I would definitely give Mitch the edge as far as taking the whole thing. I think it was. Yeah, I think I would take that. I would take that bet. So, seeing a Minnesota-Houston game, that would be kind of interesting because Mitch would be confused between wearing a Minnesota cheerleading outfit and then wearing his coach's outfit for Houston. That'd be kind of interesting. When you think so, Dean?
Yeah, I think he'll be wearing the Minnesota cheerleading outfit and putting on a Houston jacket over it.
There you go. It's
That's
kind
what I think.
it's kind of funny. Mitch is sitting there quiet. Normally, Mitch would have something to clap about on this, but he's not saying a thing.
I'll just
No.
let my talking be on the field. People.
Oh, now he wants us.
There's no need to argue with guys who can't even sniff the playoffs. So,
See
I'm just
there
gonna let it go.
now he's see we had to say something to get him fired up and start clapping.
I mean, why am I going to argue with people who can't even sniff the playoffs?
Only one that hasn't gotten to the playoffs is me. Dean was in the championship game, so
Let's do some sniffing this year then.
yeah, there you go. Okay,
you
so
gotta win more than 6 games. You gotta win more than 6 games.
All right, so
2 and 5 either. 2 and 5 starts not allowed.
So, since we got plenty of time here, I mean, obviously as the games get shorter, I mean, we get less and less games. We have more stuff that we can, a lot of open space. So, let's go ahead.
What we could talk about, Mark. We could talk about. Since we did not have the special Christmas episode where we previewed the playoffs as a whole or reviewed the season, maybe we take a few minutes and just kind of do a recap or a review of the regular season and kind of the highlights and lowlights that we all
let's go ahead and do that.
See out there. Maybe things that stood out to us. Highlight to the league.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I'll let. Matter of fact, Mitch, I'll let you go ahead and start that off. Go ahead. What was your highlights and lowlights of the season?
Well, highlight of the season, obviously, I mean, everyone's highlight of the season was watching, Houston go on that 9-game winning streak to win the AFC West and continue its dominance of that Western Division. Definitely something I know everyone was excited about. I know the Discord games on Friday nights, everyone was cheering me on just loudly every game, even in those almost close wins, everyone was just thrilled when I would, beat those teams with just seconds left in the game. And, that definitely, I know for everyone was a big highlight of the season. Other highlights out there, Philadelphia, let's just say Philadelphia decided to use the draft picks that they accumulated over the seasons and finally put something together on the field. So, kind of stumbled down the stretch, though, so put a little tarnish on the season. But 12 wins, nothing to sneeze at for Philadelphia for where they normally are at out there. And I just think overall, play. I mean, you look at the season records, you've got, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all 8 playoff teams were double-digit winners. We had a winning team not make the playoffs. We had 2 other 500 teams not make the playoffs. And, we're only a season or 2 removed where we had 7 and 9 teams making the playoffs. So I think that's pretty cool out there to see that we've got, you've got to step it up. If you hit double-digit wins in this league, that's – you're doing something right. So to have all the playoff teams in double digits shows you really got to step it up to make it a ways into this league. The downside, there was I don't know if you call it the downside, but definitely interesting how defenses kind of disappeared this year compared to other seasons. Not really sure why, but you look out there and the 2 lowest scoring defenses were Minnesota and Houston at 301 and 306. But then, everybody else was, had a couple in the three teens, and then above that, it's like 330s and above. So, not that we're expecting, every team to be the 2000 Baltimore Ravens or whatever, or there's 85 Bears, but it does seem as if the defenses took a nap this season for the most part, which is kind of strange because a few years ago we were wondering if we are going to score any points. So I thought that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Other lowlights out there. Just the, there's a lot of teams, as we said, double-digit wins, but then we've got a group of teams that can't even sniff 5 wins out there. So feel kind of bad for them. But at least they get high draft picks. Well, except for the ones that have traded them away to the double-digit team wins. So that kind of sucks for them. But anyway, those are a few of the highlights that I'm seeing out there, Mark.
Okay.
Well, speaking of decline of defenses, half the teams in the league, 9 of them, gave up more than 390 points on defense. That's like half. That's a lot of points to give up. There was more scoring this season.
Oh yeah. But still, it was like what's 390 divided by 16. That's what, 24 points. Yeah, so half the league give up 24 points a game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the teams gave up 507 points.
Ooh.
Yeah, the Giants. The Giants
also scored 297, which was the lowest scoring output at the same time.
Yeah. When you're giving up 32 points a game, and you're only scoring on average 19 points a game, that's how you end up with 2 wins right there. That's how you end up with 2 wins.
Yeah, and that same Giants team was the only team that my team got 2 wins against. So I don't know who else. I think the Giants might have upset Washington one week, I believe. Let me look at the schedule.
I think they scored half their points against one team. I think it was Detroit or Philadelphia, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I think it was Philadelphia. I can't remember. I don't keep up too much of those teams that have less than 4 wins, but
Yeah, they beat Philadelphia week 16 and then beat Washington week 3, 24-17. So
yeah,
success in losing the rest of their games and tied for the worst record in the league at 2-14. Both the 2-14 teams were from the NFC West, the same division that gave us 2 playoff teams that lost in the first round of the playoffs.
You mean NFC East? NFC
East.
Yeah, which might make you wonder what's going on with those people.
So that 49ers-Vikings game will be the real Super Bowl.
Well, maybe the Philadelphia and Washington. I would say maybe their stats were a little inflated, but if you just said that the Giants beat both those teams, I don't know. I don't know. But interesting.
Yep. So, I think on my end, I think the plus doesn't have to do with this particular team. It has to do with the league in general, and that is the increase of people coming into the Friday Night Lights. And I think that's a big cap nod to Mitch running games and Dean running games, getting the word out, getting the place in there. I think there have been a couple times, where might have been the whole league was there. I know a couple coaches don't participate that often for whatever their reason is. Respect that.
We typically have about 9 to 10 coaches in at once, with others rotating in. So about half the league is usually in the room at all times. Yeah.
Right. So for that, I think that was the big thing. Yeah. Right. I think that was the big game, and the big positive for the league. And I believe there were times where, even when the games were done, they were still out there talking, or might have gotten in there early and they were still talking. And the teamwork that you two had, when Mitch wasn't available, Dean was able to pick up the ball and go for it. So I think that was a huge plus. And I think that's kind of gotten more people involved in the league, and possibly, I don't know the information based off of it, but if there's more coaches in the wings wanting to come and join the league. So that right there, I see, was a huge victory for us in the PNFL. I guess on the downside, again, not looking at my team, I just think that Mitch did hit it as well. Some of the teams that aren't, under 5 wins or something along those lines. But again, as we were told, everyone can't have that little. Everyone gets a participation trophy where everybody's 8-8 or something along those lines. You're going to have some teams that are good and some teams that aren't. I think it's just a matter of planning your team, doing your draft properly, getting your PPPs together and your playbook. Now, I will say this far as the playbook in the PPP or the PPPs in general. It was mentioned several times. I've been the victim of it, and Mitch and Rich talked about it. Dean's talked about it. You guys got to keep up to date with your, working on your profiles. Maybe not the playbook as much, but definitely your profiles. There were a lot of teams, including mine. I'm backed up in the end zone and I'm running a razzle dazzle pass. Clock management, times when I should have been calling timeout and I didn't. I had, one game, I'm doing a kneel down when it's like no reason to be even trying to do that kneel down, but, my profile wasn't set up properly. So I guess the low point for me would be the PPP planning, something that you guys can take a look at during the off season, because the guys that are in the championship game, as I watch them on Discord, a lot of them have their PPPs real tight and dialed in. And if they make a mistake and you can see it while you're watching the game, they usually lose because of that one play calling scenario. So looking at those guys. Yep. Go ahead.
Well, things like kicking a field goal with 30 seconds left in the game when you're down by 6 points.
Yep.
Those are things that some of those kinds of errors like that you have to catch by watching practice games, because you don't see that in Sims and you don't see that unless those situations come up. And there's something like 2,500 profile situations, so unless you spend hours just going at every single one of those 2,500 situations, make sure all of them are correct, and generally you're going to spot those errors by watching a practice game and then see the situation come up where there's 35 seconds left and the score is 24-20 and your team is kicking a field goal rather than going for a touchdown. Then you realize, and you can look at the in the log, you can look at the play call 431 or whatever the number is on offense, where you bring up your profile, type in 431, you see that situation and you say, oh, I'm kicking a field goal there. I need to be going for it on 4th and 2 through 5 with 35 seconds left or whatever. When you're down by, 7 points or whatever it is.
Yep, I agree. So
things like that come up, and it's easier said than done, and we probably all still have some errors and maybe the better teams have fewer errors. I don't know if anyone has no errors unless they just spent an entire 8-hour day or whatever it would take to just go through every single profile situation and make sure that they're correct.
Well, I think for the most part, when it comes towards the end, a lot of the errors that we saw, or at least I noticed, and Mitch, jump in there if you feel the same, because I know you've seen a lot of them as well, is usually within 2 minutes and less, under that 2 minute in the first half and in the second half, where certain things aren't set up properly. I think that's where most of the errors occur. Would you agree?
Yeah, usually anything that is dealing with situations where you might have to use timeouts. That seems to be where things get really jacked in.
So definitely got to take a look into that. I also think, too, another area is where you have the, when to go for 2, when not to go for 2. I think a lot of guys are doing the if they score a touchdown, they're going for the 2-point conversion, and a lot of coaches are still planning as if they're just going to go straight and kick the extra point, and they usually get cooked every time with a 2-point conversion. So that's something I think the teams will probably take a look at during the off season and either looking at certain teams, because I think you guys know who the teams are that go for 2 every time and others that go for 1. So you got to kind of draw that balance out as far as when you play a certain team, which way you're going to go as far as going for 1 or defending against 1 or defending against 2. So anything else we got, guys? I think as we're coming to wrap this up, any final words or anything that you have to say over there, Dean? I know that before I jump into it, I know the PCFL has kicked off. So do you want to talk a little bit about the PCFL before we wrap up?
Yeah, we go into week 3 this coming weekend, and there's some interesting matchups this weekend. And this past weekend, as you all know, we played a rematch, last year's championship game between Washington and Texas. And once again, just like last season's championship game, it was decided by a margin of 3 points. Very close game.
Yeah, and Washington was on the losing end again. So definitely we had to find a way to vanquish this foe, because I think this is our only meeting this week, or meeting this season. If we run into each other again, it'll either be in the playoffs or in the championship game. So, yeah, another tough loss, 3-point victory. So, just got to find a way to take them out. So, as we make one last trip around the table, Dean, anything else that you have on your plate that you want to get off before we end the show?
No, I would just say good luck to everyone in the games in the PCFL and in the PNFL playoffs this weekend. And I'm going to guess that we're going to be watching the games again on Sunday afternoon.
All right. Mitch, any final words before you take us home?
The playoff games we'll do again on Sunday. That's the request of the league office to do those on Sunday. So probably not the same time, around 6 or so Eastern. And other than that, the only thing left to do now is let's get it.